What's up, everyone? Welcome to Fight Picks by Mo. I wanted to give you guys a quick recap on UFC 247, Jon Jones versus Dominic Reyes, and the two fights that I had predicted in my last video, the Jon Jones versus Reyes fight, and also the Derek Lewis versus Olear Latifi fight. So without further ado, let's get into it. Jon Jones, in my opinion, lost the fight. 2-3. I thought Reyes did enough to win the first 3 rounds. So let's start with significant strikes. Rounds 1, Reyes outscored him 23-17. Rounds 2, 33-22. And rounds 3, 26-19. Now, people are talking about Jon Jones' takedowns as if that had anything to do with rounds 1 through 3. It didn't. All of his successful takedowns came in rounds 4 and 5, which I agree Jon Jones won. If we look at the per round takedown attempts and successful takedowns over here, we'll see that Jon Jones attempted 2 takedowns in the first round but didn't get any, and attempted another 2 in rounds 3 but didn't get any as well. In rounds 4, he got 1 takedown, and in rounds 5, he got 1 takedown, which I will say Dominic Reyes showed amazing takedown defense and hopped right back up. I was very, very impressed with his performance. If you guys recall, my odds on this fight were about 40% chance of Dominic winning, and I'm very, very happy with that pick. And at plus 350, meaning you bet 100, you win 350 by betting on Dominic Reyes. But in the rematch, Dominic Reyes will not be a plus 350 favorite. I assume that those odds will be a lot more even, probably putting Dominic Reyes at a plus 150. Again, I think Dominic Reyes won this fight 3-2. He did enough to win the first 3 rounds. And I think a lot of people in the MMA community also agree with me on this. DC said Dominic Reyes, he thought Dominic Reyes won 3-2. Dana White even said he thought Dominic won 3-2. So it's interesting. And a lot of people are saying that, oh, Jon Jones is the champ. You got to take it from the champ. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I agree with that, maybe in theory, but in terms of judges' criteria, how judges should be scoring around, it's pretty clear. And I think Dominic had the clear advantage in terms of significant strikes. So that's my take on the first fight. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe. So the second fight that we had talked about was the Derek Lewis Olear Latifi fight. So that one I thought was a lot closer of a fight. Olear Latifi, just to recap on the odds, Olear Latifi was a plus 200 underdog, pretty significant underdog against Derek Lewis. It was his first fight coming up to heavyweight from light heavyweight. And the fight actually, so I had predicted that it would go to a 3-round decision, but man, Derek Lewis was hitting Olear Latifi with some solid shots. And I had also said that Derek Lewis, he was he's a little slow, he's bigger and he's slow, but man, coming into this fight, he looked great. He looked leaner than I've ever seen him. He even said that he didn't have to cut weight anymore, making heavyweight. So he looked great, and he looked very agile as well. Those flying knees, man, I had never expected that I would see Derek Lewis throwing flying knees, some of which landed on Olear Latifi as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. So from a significant strike perspective, Derek Lewis dominated the fight, except for round 2, which is, I think, the only round that the judges probably gave to Olear Latifi. Round 1, it was clearly in favor of Derek Lewis. And round 3, it was also in favor of Derek Lewis. But the big X factor in this fight were the takedowns. So if we look at the takedowns, which is this column right here, we'll see that Olear Latifi didn't get any takedowns in rounds 1, but was 2 for 2 in round 2 and was 1 of 2 in round 3. One thing that they don't show here, which makes a big difference as well, was top time control or top game control, which was pretty significant for Olear Latifi. Contrasting this with the Dominic Reyes fight, Jon Jones was able to get Dominic Reyes down twice, but he was not able to keep him there for a significant amount of time. Unlike Olear Latifi for Derek Lewis, Olear Latifi was able to take down Lewis and keep him there for a significant amount of time. He didn't really do much with it. He didn't land too many strikes. He honestly seemed very tired at the end of the fight, and at the end of round 3, Derek Lewis was putting it on him. I was actually shocked that Latifi was actually just eating these shots from one of the biggest punchers the UFC has. So that was very, very impressive. But Latifi, ultimately, he just needed to work on his cardio. I mean, the number of times that he was looking up at the clock during this fight was just insane. But regardless, I thought it was a good performance by 2 guys. And I think the fight could have gone either way. The X Factor round of the fight was round 3. Latifi scored the takedown, but in terms of In terms of significant strikes, Derek Lewis landed 11 out of 24. But if we look at total strikes, which includes the strikes that Latifi was landing on Lewis in the clinch and also on the ground that were not as significant, Latifi outscored Lewis 24-12. But it's really hard to give that round to Latifi given how it ended. I mean, it ended with Lewis just putting it on him and Latifi looking visibly fatigued. So I am not unhappy with that decision, although it could have gone either way. My Mo probability, if you remember from my last video, was 50%. I had this as a 50-50 toss-up, but at plus 200, I was happy with those odds, and that's why I said if I had to pick two fights on this card, I would have picked Olear Latifi on the Derek Lewis fight and Reyes on the Jones fight. Anyways, that's my recap. I'm actually upset about the Reyes fight. I think Reyes should have won, but I'm not so upset about the Lewis and Latifi fight. Both of them were very, very close, and I cannot wait for the card this coming weekend. I will get back to you guys with my picks on fights for that card. I know a couple of you guys have already mentioned in the comments from my last video where my picks were this weekend, so I'll try to get that out to you guys as soon as possible. Until next time, guys, have a great week.
Jon Jones is like